Darth Vader is perhaps one of the most tragic characters in the modern Star Wars franchise, after having lost quite literally everything and everyone that he had ever loved, and helping the rise of the Empire conquer the old Republic that stood before it. Vader has had an immeasurable mental burden to carry with him throughout his 2 decades as the Sith Lord. Recently, a team of psychiatrists from UCLA and the Toolhouse University Hospital in France have teamed up to diagnose Darth Vader's mental state, and their findings were recently published. Therefore, we decided that this would be something that would be really interesting to cover here on the channel, especially in light of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader's return. So, students of the Force, let's evaluate these findings and finally dissect Darth Vader's mental state according to the findings of seasoned professionals and qualified individuals. Dr. Eric Bowie from Toolhouse has gone on record and stated that he associates Anakin with borderline personality disorder, a condition that is caused by a break in emotional control, affecting how an individual views themselves as well as others. Some symptoms that Anakin actually displays, and signs that include an increase in impulsivity, intense mood swings, and an affinity for viewing situations in stark binaries, either being all good or all bad with no gray area in between. On the surface, this seems to embody Anakin rather well, as his rash impulsivity and illusions of invincibility can be seen throughout the course of the Clone Wars and even the earlier prequel films, and his issues with anger and emotional management seem to support this theory as well. In psychiatry, there is a list of criteria that a patient must hit before a diagnosis is viable, and in the case of borderline personality disorder, there are 9 possible criteria, 5 of which must be hit by a patient in order to qualify. The 9 criteria are as follows: chronic feelings of emptiness, emotional instability in regards to day-to-day events, imagined abandonment or efforts to avoid feeling real, unstable self-image, impulsive behavior that has the potential to cause harm, inappropriate anger or difficulty controlling anger, pattern of unstable emotional relationships between loved ones, suicidal or self-harming tendencies, and finally, severe disassociation symptoms. According to Professor Bowie and his team, 5 of these factors must be met, and Anakin Skywalker, of his turn, meets 6 of them. His rapid shift in how he views his mentor, Obi-Wan Kenobi, can be classified as an unhealthy relationship, as Obi-Wan seems to cycle rapidly between idealizing Obi-Wan as a wise and powerful master, and then shifting into devaluing him as a mentor. Bowie and his team also cite severe abandonment issues for Anakin, not only in regards to his mother, but in terms of his relationship with Padme. His fear of losing her, an intense desire to hold on to her as tightly as possible, is a sign of dependency that stems from his previous abandonment issues, and is incredibly unhealthy. It has also been established that Anakin has made multiple attempts to distance himself from emotionally strenuous or traumatic events, and Anakin largely does this by voicing his paranoia. This is how he justified the slaughter of the Tusken Raiders as well as the murder of the younglings, automatically defaulting to his delusions and using his fears to separate himself from the weight of his actions. If these were done in the interest of protecting those that he loved, then he can use that reasoning to set aside the toll that these actions took on his psyche. His impulsive behaviors have led him to incredibly dangerous situations on multiple occasions with little regard for his own safety or the safety of those around him. And within the environment of the war, these stakes were drastically heightened. He has no qualms about making bold moves towards endangering himself, his friends, as well as the clones under his command. But perhaps the most prominent trait is his vast array of problems with his own self-identity. The weight of the Chosen One prophecy, as well as the absence of a unique father figure, led him to question himself and his place in the galaxy at large. We even see this once Anakin takes on the moniker of Darth Vader, as he views Vader and Anakin as 2 entirely separate individuals. This is most likely another tactic to cope with his own actions, and is another method for separating himself from his past. If he attributes certain actions to Anakin Skywalker and others to Darth Vader, then he is able to absolve himself of any guilt that he might have felt, at least in his own mind. Although how effective this is of course debatable. Professor Bowie even compares the use of the dark side to the use of a potent drug, in that an individual might logically know that it's wrong, yet they come to rely on this high, or rather, the senses of power associated with both aspects. Drug use, and especially that of severely dangerous drugs, comes primarily from a desire to escape the world, and individuals who are trapped in situations that they can no longer mentally cope with are far more likely to use hard drugs. This can be attributed to a feeling of power and the ability to willingly pull themselves out of danger or harmful situations by using the dark side. side, which closely resembles the dark side of the Force in its own nature and its ultimate goals. Bowie even theorizes that the psychology behind using both might be incredibly similar to one another, at least in the case for Anakin. There are two interesting notes to cover, however, the first of which is that borderline personality disorder can only be diagnosed in adults, and Anakin is just entering adulthood throughout the prequel era. In fact, the Clone Wars start when he is just 19 years of age, meaning that he is only just now able to be diagnosed professionally by the standards here on Earth. The other factor to take into account is that many of these conditions can manifest themselves in situational circumstances and not simply all at once, and a patient must show the prolonged display of these factors in day-to-day life in order to be professionally diagnosed. Anakin, however, was in the midst of fighting a war during this diagnosis, which is an incredibly strenuous emotional and psychological experience which might have contributed to some of these factors. And without the war, Anakin may not have actually displayed any of these. However, taking into account the multiple signs of severe depression and PTSD that Darth Vader showcases throughout the latter half of his life, it becomes abundantly clear that Darth Vader is very mentally unstable, as if this is something we didn't already know. But thanks to the minds of Dr. Bowie and his associates, we have a more firm grasp on exactly what is going on in the psyche of Anakin and Vader, or at least a little bit better. I also want to make it clear though that here at the channel, none of us are medical professionals or psychiatrists in any way. However, these studies were done by medical professionals, and I wanted to highlight and share these studies with you guys and then get your insight into it. So, students of the Force, what do you think of this assessment? Would you like to see more research conducted on the psychological diagnosis of Star Wars characters? And if so, who else would you like to see explored? As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching the channel and continuing to support it. May the Force be with you, and I hope that you have a great day.